famous short article. You can read it in 3-4 minutes. But with many different levels of meaning behind it, as with all Kafka's writing. This piece of theatre, there are only 3 characters, and they have great symbolic importance. They have more symbols than just human beings. And the music itself has a very symbolic meaning too. The piece takes place either in the whole lifetime of one of the men who comes to the law, or in the very last moment of his life, in the last breath that he takes before he dies. And breath is in this opera a very, very important part of the sound. So all the instruments breathe. It's clear the flutes, the clarinets, even the trumpets, the horns, the trombones, they make a lot of time, they're just breathing into their instruments, creating a structure of noise, not of musical notes. So in this piece, much of the structure is built up from what we would call noises, not tones. Sciarrino himself comes from Sicily, and in his music there is always this background of the wind, of the air going across the landscape, and also of breath. And because breath is what brings life, breath is very important in this from a dramaturgical point of view and also from a musical point of view. He's also very interested in the plight of the small man faced with power. How does the ordinary man, cope in a country or in a society where some people have absolute power over him? And he is very politically aware, I would say, not active but aware in Italy, and feels strongly that the bureaucracy there is killing the life of the individual. Most of his operas are dealing with people in power and how they deal with power and how the small man deals with that situation. I think he's had this story in mind for a long time. And when in Wuppertal, when we were looking to commission an opera for the reopening of the opera house there, I think he thought this was an ideal piece. And it's what is almost unique about this piece is the way the music and the story, and in this case the production, come together to make a whole. They seem, the strangeness of Kafka's story seems to be reflected in the strangeness of the music in a very satisfying way. Waiting is a very important, is what the man is doing all the time. And it comes to the point when the waiting becomes an act of its own. He doesn't really expect to find a conclusion. Just in the simplest way that when you go to an office and you wait for permission to do this or permission to do that, you wait and you wait. And this is what he calls the small power of the bureaucrat, who can take out his frustrations by making the people wait and wait. And it's definitely a very powerful element. It's a very interesting orchestra because we have some very unusual instruments that are playing, 2 of which we've had to bring from Germany because they don't exist here with their players. And on the other hand, we have a lot of conventional instruments that are played in a completely different way. So it's quite difficult for the orchestra, it's very new for them to learn these techniques. The main instruments we have brought are a bass flute, which is a very, very long, big flute, which plays very low, and a contrabass clarinet, which doesn't exist here at all. A very big, very low clarinet, which has a lot to play. But the other instruments play in a quite unusual way. For example, the strings, the violins and cellos, basically, they play a lot of the time not on the strings, but on the back of the instrument, or round the other side, or behind the bridge. The wind instruments spend a lot of time just breathing through their instruments, going sounds like that in all sorts of different ways. The flutes particularly, Sciarrino loves flutes, and so he has all sorts of special techniques, sometimes by breathing in instead of out, and making all sorts of special effects. It's a very unique sound space that he creates with this combination of unusual instruments, also percussion instruments. We have one which is like a thunder sheet that creates a white sound through a lot of the opera. This is true. It is very reduced. It's reduced to its essentials. But he has written other operas that have much more with chorus there and many more performers and so on. And of course, it depends on the subject. And I think he wanted to concentrate absolutely on this one process of the man confronting authority, and anything else would be a distraction. And then the same situation exactly repeats for the second man, structurally, but the music is different. Sometimes the instruments play what a singer sang the first time round, or the other way around, or singer sings what an instrument played before, and the words are very slightly changed. He changes the translation into Italian, so the words are a little different, and so there are very, very subtle differences. And then, as I said, it starts again from the beginning. We have both men there. And in this production, because we don't know, is it just one man or is it all men? In the final scene there, you see the two men, and then they suddenly start becoming more and more people until they become the whole world, all mankind. So the circularity is the sense that the situation happens to anyone, to everyone, and keeps going round and round. That's the element of it. I'm very impressed by the work that Gloria Sear and Francisco Vergara have done over the years, keeping the standard repertoire alive and doing very good performances. But I felt for some time, and we had a convention about training of opera singers 2 years ago where I spoke, and I said it is time now for there to be the great works of the 20th century, operatic works of the 20th century and the 21st century, to be played here. And the problem is, I was always told, was to find the audience for this. So I felt very strongly that if we could bring something to the Festival Ibero-Americana, and this was also an idea we discussed with Mariana Garcés, the minister, we would maybe start finding a new audience for opera and for modern opera, because it's important to convince this wonderful audience you have for theatre here that opera can also be very good theatre and very, very powerful theatre.